Welcome back to Lost for Words with Lori. It is Friday. It is November 4th, sorry. God, I don't even have my days correct. That's kind of nuts, but I hope everybody is doing all right. So I know that yesterday, which would have been the 3rd, and my last podcast was a little angry and kind of shitty, and I wanted an opportunity to come on here and do a little update and talk to you about, resolving conflicts and about the lesson that I learned from yesterday's little fiasco. So I appreciate that you're here, and thank you very much for spending a couple of minutes to hear me out. So, you know that social media is kind of a double-edged sword, right? So each of us brings kind of our own experience, our own trauma, our own personal bias to the table. And we all have unique perspectives, and there's a lot of colorful personalities. And I personally have spent a year or more navigating a specific social media platform, and I've learned a lot of valuable lessons while I also navigated my real life and all of the triumphs and the agonies that come with my first world, right? And those things were transposed into my virtual world in one way or another. As an example, Toby passing away was a pretty traumatic event, but also spending some time with my family or my friends has been kind of a good thing. And those have all kind of translated, the kittens and the farm and the things that I do have all translated into my virtual world in some way. And you guys have been here to hear about that. And my podcast has been kind of a diary of that journey for the last 12 months. I've been able to document my emotions, my observations, and the events and the things that have happened. And I've tried to emulate the lessons that I've learned both in the real world and on the interwebs through my virtual diary and the podcast that I do. So I guess the first important lesson that we all need to remind ourselves is that we're all human and we're all imperfect. And we have to be able to recognize our behavior, be accountable for it, and act accordingly when we're navigating the social media, the social interwebs, right? Basically, I've talked a lot. I've done a lot of different episodes about different things that I've learned. And, I kind of owe a lot of people an apology for the big shitstorm and the drama and the really poor reaction that I did yesterday. I mean, it was never my intention to do a drama or a hate type podcast. And I was angry and I was emotional, and that's no excuse for that. But I didn't take the time to take my own advice and de-escalate my situation and not be emotional before I lashed out and acted like a fool. And I wanted to convey that. I wanted to express that to people, that you didn't deserve to get dragged into that drama. And I know people love the drama, right? And I get that. But that's never been what I've been about here. It's never been my intention to drag other people into first world conflicts. And I kind of wanted to kind of give you a breakdown of how that conflict resolved itself and what I learned from that overnight. And update everybody regarding the so-called fight, that so many people saw unfold. And I mean, it's not a lot of people. It's not like we're any big fucking deal. I joke about that a lot. I'm kind of a big deal. But, we're nobodies. We're just small potatoes in a really large world of social media. But, I've talked a lot about being allowed to be a free thinker and do what you want and establish those boundaries. And I've made it pretty clear that I've been very transparent about those boundaries. And I like anybody else, don't like everybody. I've recognized really bad behavior, and I've called out a lot of bad behavior, but I've tried to do it in a way where it was constructive and not damaging and not pointing fingers and generalizations so that people would go, maybe I should take a look at that. Maybe this is about me. But 99% of the time, it really wasn't about anybody. It was about everybody. And, I did a podcast about truth being subjective and about the perceptions that everybody has and how we look at things so very differently. And I think at the heart of yesterday's conflict that I had with a friend, a social media friend, an internet friend that I've made and talked to and nurtured a friendship and cared about, was a prime example of how we both perceive something very different. Her being, I like this person, and me being, I don't like that person, and the reasons why. But at the end of the day, it's okay for me to not like her friend, and it's okay for her to not care. And the failure that we had to communicate and her reaction to be angry about me saying things that she saw as being hateful, I saw it as being truthful. Again, different perspectives. Does it make it right or wrong? That's up to the person who's viewing it. And being more mindful of, practicing what you preach. Because that was her argument, was, I was talking shit and being dramatic. From her perspective, I can understand why it would look that way. From my perspective, I was agreeing that somebody has been engaging in bad behavior and I don't approve of it. What the argument was about, honestly, had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with somebody defending their friend and me saying, this has nothing to do with you, and you don't need to fight other people's battles. A lot of kind of hurtful things were thrown around out of anger, which again does not dismiss my accountability for the mean things that I may have said. And they weren't super mean because I wasn't mad at my friend. I was mad that she made other people feel uncomfortable because she was angry with me. And my only argument with that was the same thing I've told everybody, is that if I do something that upsets you, just come and ask me about it. Come and talk to me about it. You don't have to react and drag other people into what could have been resolved with a simple explanation as to why I saw it my way and listen to why she saw it her way. And then came up with an agreement or a resolution to not make it uncomfortable for either of us, which we did after we had both calmed down. And again, that has been a rule and a lesson, and it's a thing that I have tried really hard to try to remember when I'm feeling angry and I'm lashing out, is to de-escalate my situation before I react. And I failed yet again to practice that new lesson that I'm struggling with learning. And I was grateful for my friend to reach out to me first thing this morning after we had both slept and calmed down and had that rational conversation where I said, this was never about you. I wasn't angry at you. I didn't have anything against you. And I still don't. You're still my friend. I still care about you. I just don't approve of this. And I was able to explain my side. Does that mean that I don't want them to be friends with their friend anymore? Not at all. Does it mean that we can't still maintain a good friendship and be civilized with each other because of it? It absolutely doesn't mean that. It means that we can continue down that path. I will do what it takes to try to check myself at the door the next time I get angry, But But I tried to express that, months ago, these people were engaging in the same behavior that they were accusing me of doing. All in the same manner of they saw it as being truthful and informative, and I saw it as being hateful. Again, it's about perspective. And I think once I was able to calm down and think about it a little bit more, instead of just be big mad and somebody just did a hate stream about me and called me all this shit and whatever, I've been trying to express to people how foolish that looks. And I felt pretty foolish doing it. But I got pretty caught up in the fact that I was angry and emotional, and how dare somebody bounce on my boundaries, that I didn't take time to just calm down and try to take a look at it and be rational and reach out first and say, you know what, we need to have a conversation before this gets stupid. And neither of us did that. And we both feel pretty stupid about it today. Because we made people that like both of us, we put them in a situation where they're like, oh, damn, what do I do? And I'm really proud of my friends, the people that I call my friends, even my first world friends that are on the internet with me, when presented with this whole thing or with people wanting to talk about it, said, that sounds like it's a them problem. And they allowed us to resolve our conflict. They didn't feel it was necessary to jump in and take sides. And it wasn't just my friends, it was also their friends who said, you know what, we like you both, and we're just going to sit this one out. And it makes me very proud of a very great, wonderful handful of people who handled a situation they should have never been put in the first place, like really mature adults. And that made a lot of difference, because we were able to sit down and go, you know what, I was an asshole, you were an asshole, let's not be assholes anymore. And our friends, everybody's happy today. Everybody's like, you guys good? Yep, we're good. Are you good? Yep, we're good. We both apologized to them for putting them in that situation and said, let's move forward. Let's learn to communicate better next time. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the opportunity that it didn't turn into another huge war in toxic cesspool world that was unnecessary. And that makes me feel good. It makes me feel like all of the journaling, all of the lessons that I'm learning and trying to share are really making an impact, that people are really learning, and even me learning and recognizing that we can all work really hard to be better versions of ourselves. And when we do make mistakes, like I did, or like she did, or like lots of people do when they're angry, that it doesn't mean that we're not human, that we're not allowed to own our behavior, to apologize genuinely and authentically, and work on resolving things better in the future. Because I can guarantee you, I'm probably going to lose my temper again in the future. But I'm hoping that the next time I do, I will de-escalate before I start lashing out and getting angry and having a temper tantrum on the internet, because that's not my way. And I'm not doing it for clout and likes and subscriptions. And my friend is right. I don't want to gatekeep anybody. And it might have appeared that I was doing that. And I don't want anybody to believe that I'm not going to practice what I preach, because I'm a firm believer in not being a hypocrite. It's easy for all of us to stop and point fingers. And when I say that people bring their first world trauma with them to social media, that's a fact. And there's a lot of proof that most people do that. And some people are really good at being able to close the door on that trauma and first world stuff and come to the internet and use social media for the positive escape that it's meant to be there for. But it's unfortunate that there are a lot of us who struggle, and we have a harder time not reacting and not letting our past issues or our traumas or our unique perspectives and emotions get the best of us. But I'm grateful that when we can come to a certain understanding and we can all be rational and act like free-thinking adults and stop letting our own personal setbacks cause reactions and trauma back to other people, that we can be better versions of ourselves and we can continue that move forward. So I really just wanted, number one, to apologize for being a drama llama and proliferating in the shitstorm that irritates me so badly. And yeah, at the end of the day, I was pretty embarrassed. My behavior was not acceptable. I wanted to thank the people who acted like adults through that, supported both of us, still care about both of us, and look at this from a situation of what can we learn from this. And it also makes me feel more comfortable to express how I feel to people a little more transparently, and for them to hopefully reciprocate that back. Because honestly, communication is key. And as long as we can all sit down and stop for a minute and listen without the intent of just reacting or responding, things are going to be a lot more pleasant for a lot of people. So again, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. I hope you've learned as much from it as I have. My friend is a good person. She's been through a lot. We've been through something very similar that's as traumatic in losing somebody close to us. And we started our friendship learning to bond over that mutual trauma. And there's no reason for us to dislike each other. We have a lot we can both learn from each other. And I'd love to continue that with her. So until next time, you guys, thank you. I love all of you. Don't forget, wash your fucking hands and be a good human. I'll see you all later.